So, good afternoon and welcome to our session on research assessment. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to moderate it. I'm Carlo Di Politi, an economist at Sapienza University of Rome, as well as a member of the Global Young Academy and of the newly established Italian Young Academy, the SILC. This session is co-organized by the GYA, the Global Young Academy, and QARA, the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, to debate the challenges and progress in research assessment. It is now almost a commonplace, I would say, for researchers to complain about research culture, but do we mean the same thing by this term in different places? And are reform efforts going in the same direction? Perhaps more importantly, should they? Let me please emphasize that this is important because incentives for researchers do shape behaviors. So what we are really asking here is, what are researchers for? What is the social role and use of science? Crucial questions. We will discuss about them with Lydia Borrell-Damian, the Secretary General of Science Europe, Nosisa Dube, the Director of the South African National Research Foundation, Yancy Flores-Bueso, a co-chair of the Global Young Academy, and Fang Xu, professor at the Institute of Science and Development of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Unfortunately, we should also have had a further colleague from Latin America, Luciana Balboa, who cannot be here for personal reasons. The first speaker today is Yancy Flores. As I mentioned, she's a co-chair of the Global Young Academy. Yancy is a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow at the Institute of Protein Design at the University of Washington, as well as the Cancer Research Center at the University College of Cork. As an academic, she works on computational protein design to generate proteins, but she's also a social entrepreneur, having led multiple successful startups. And she has been a co-lead of Scientific Excellence Working Group of the GYA. As well as in the past a member of the steering board of QARA. To kick off our meetings with some facts, today Yancy will present the results of a global study. Please, Yancy.
Thank you, Carlo. So it's my pleasure to be here and talk to you about a project that I hold very dear. And it's a project aiming to look or get an outlook of what really matters for academic promotion. This study was done by almost 30 researchers, members and alumni from the Global Young Academy, and with the support of a lot of member, alumni, and network of the Global Young Academy. So to study how researchers are evaluated worldwide, we perform a cross-sectional analysis examining the assessment criteria used for promotion policies. Now, to compare the diversity of data, we needed to focus on our analysis in the role of full professor, as is the most widely recognized role in academia. And we focused our study in four most widely adopted tracks: academic research focus, teaching focus, and clinical track, that are applicable for academic institutions without or excluding any non-university environments. So with this methodology, we were able to sample and analyze 532 policies from 190 academic institutions and 58 governmental agencies from 121 countries, with a fair representation of presence in the global north and south. In general, by analyzing and studying these documents, we found 30 prevalent criteria that we were broadly grouped in 5 categories: career development, recognition, teaching and services, general traits, and research outputs, which played a central role in research assessment, being present in 97% of the policies surveyed. Among the other criteria that were highly used were mentoring, teaching, and funding. Now, we found that research outputs could be measured in using 11 different criteria, 7 of which were quantitative, such as recent publications, number of publications, and patents, and 4 of them which were qualitative, measure the quality of the outputs, such as social impact, authorship roles, and quality of the publication. In the comparison between national and institutional policies, we found that both relied heavily on the use of quantitative indicators. And this is true for countries in the global south and the global north in both institutional and national policies. However, when it comes about qualitative assessment, we found a difference in a group, which is in the global north, institutional policies tend to use more qualitative assessment measures. We also found that some criteria tend to cluster together within certain documents, which means that these documents have a narrow focus and have less emphasis in the diversity of candidate profiles. And in this way, we found 4 different groupings: output metrics, which include criteria such as number of publications, number of authors, and journal index. They emphasize their assessment on these criteria. Outcomes and impact, which focus their assessment in funding and foresight and patents, for example. Professional development, which assess accumulated citations, experience abroad, service to the profession, and visibility and engagement, which assess social impact, community engagement, qualitative assessment of research outputs. Now, to study what influences the choice of criteria that is within each policy, we perform a regression analysis to see which of these factors have influence in each policy. And for this, we studied context-related and job-related points or factors. And we found that job characteristics, such as disciplines, career tracks, and ranks, were not significantly determinants of the assessed criteria. For example, we see here on the top box that for tracks, only those that with a research-focused track have a slightly different or more influence or weights in visibility and engagement, and less weight in career development when compared to the other tracks. And And for disciplines, for disciplines, we find that only engineering was a bit different from the standard non-specific disciplines. For example, had a higher influence in outcomes and impact and career development. Now, we do find that contextual social characteristics, such as region and policy scope, had greater effects in determining the criteria of evaluation. As we can see here, the Global North, when comparing with policies from institutional policies from the Global North, national policies in the Global North had a higher prevalence or studied more output metrics, and national institutions from the Global South had a higher engagement, influence in visibility and engagement, and in the Global South, both national and institutional policies had a higher reliance in career development. Now, a lot of this may be explained, all of this difference may be explained by or driven by socioeconomic status, cultural and institutional priorities of where the policies are located. For example, as we can see, when compared to upper income countries, then upper middle countries have a higher reliance, a significantly higher reliance in output metrics. On the other hand, lower and middle income countries have a lower reliance in visibility and engagement, and a lower reliance in outcomes and impact, which is quite interesting that these are measures that focus on the impacts of the projects and the relationships with the community, and these are more influential in the higher income countries. So as main takeaways, we can see that promotion criteria are not uniform and vary across institutions and countries in the world. Each policy shows a preferential cluster of criteria that is focused, remarking the lack of diversity in quality sought per institution. So the pronounced difference that we observed are not driven by job-related factors, rather than were driven by context of where the researcher is evaluated. And very surprisingly, scientometrics are most popular in upper middle income countries, which is kind of a catch-up strategy to what was more prevalent in high-income countries earlier. And with this, I want to thank my co-authors, GYA members and alumni who supported this work, and the GYA office who supported this work too. And thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Yancy. Hopefully there will be time for discussion as well. Our next speaker is Lydia Borrell-Damian. She's a Secretary General of Science Europe, the association representing national public organizations that fund and perform research in Europe. She's an academic with a doctorate in chemistry and an experience as an assistant professor at the University of Barcelona, but also she has a long experience in the management of research as a director of research at Pompeu Fabra, and then she worked at the European University Association. So she could have several hats possible in this discussion. Today, notably, she's also a member of the steering board of COARA, which is one of the co-organizers of this session. So please, Lydia, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's for me a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for being so numerous at this time of the day. Congratulations, Yancy, for the fantastic study. I think it's very informative, and we need pieces like this that provide us so much relevant information, and see how we can link them with efforts, for example, in COARA. So I would start my contribution to focus mostly and first and foremost with values, because values underpin behaviors. And in Science Europe, the organization I represent here today, in addition of COARA, did a lot of internal work to try and determine values that would cut across all disciplines, so values that are attributed to the research profession, to the research field. And after many discussions, we came up with 6 fundamental values. The autonomy and freedom, I know you've heard lots about it. Care and collegiality, maybe not so much. We could work a lot on that. Collaboration, another that we need to work a lot. Equality, diversity, and inclusion. And as some of the speakers remind us today, it's not just gender balance, it's also social background, it's religion, it's ethnicity, it's disability. So the equality, diversity, and inclusion has multiple dimensions. Ethics and integrity, what can we say about that? Lots and lots have been already written about that. And last but not least, openness and transparency. And these 6 values, they encompass all aspects of research, from the management and conduct of process until the governance. And that's why you see the 2 green hexagons there. However, this underpins behaviors for careers in research, the so-called team science, the research assessment reform, the open science, etc. And we can see that they are fundamental in shaping the policies that relate to these areas. Notable example of that, of course, in research assessment we have COARA, but we have others like FOLEC in South America. We have the Research and Innovation Careers Observatory. We have the movement regarding Diamond Open Access, which is a world on its own right as well. But we can see that for us, these initiatives are very well rooted in those values that we believe need to be better promoted and used, both at individual researcher level, institutional level, and system levels. All this is with the objective that we care for quality and impact of research. So this is not with a purpose. And it has an intrinsic and heavy human compound in all of it. Just a word about COARA, for those that may not be fully familiar with this organization, is an organization that was created in 2021 around 4 core commitments, which include the progressive abandoning of the exclusive use of countable indicators as a proxy for research assessment and open up to qualitative exercises. We have heard a lot of this from Yancy. And we see that progress is being done in this respect. We are also advocating for the inappropriate use of rankings, whatever the time they are, as we consider them far too reductionist and that do not capture the complexity of the research activities that universities or research centers perform. There are more commitments, but we can talk about them later if you wish. Just to show you a map of where are most of the members now, we are close to 800 members, mostly in Europe, but we are doing our efforts to expand this organization worldwide. Of course, research is a global endeavor, so we don't want to work that alone, even if there was a first nuclei of organizations in Europe ready to undertake reforms. We really would like to share all these reforms. In COARA, there are many working groups. They are open all the time. Affiliation is free as long as your institution wants to commit to do something regarding these commitments that I mentioned. All in all, we believe that we are advancing the discussion. From the part that I know best, the European research funding organizations and European research organizations are doing their part. They are conducting pilot tests, sharing their practices. They are contributing to the advancement of policy systems. This is a, let's say, work in progress. Not all changes can be done at once, so that the importance of pilots and assessment of the pilots. There are several countries in Europe who are doing very well at this, trying partial aspects, partial programs in their country to take the opportunity to test and consult researchers about the outcomes. So there is a validation process before moving forward. But all in all, at least in Europe, what we find is a great deal of coherence in the willingness in approaching the discussion, and also kind of watching each other to see what the neighbor does, to learn and see what it can be implemented in their own national context. Apart from Europe, of course, we engage in a global dialogue, also speak here on the behalf of the Global Research Council that has a working group on responsible research assessment, this with representatives from all countries all over the world, where we discuss as well all these issues, and making very significant contributions. All in all, what is important here is to advance in 3 areas quite coherently and simultaneously. One is open science, a commitment to embrace open science for what it entails, knowing that the open in the open science is not an attribution of the quality of research. It just means that that science is open. It doesn't mean that it's second-rate or third-rate science. So if we all commit to open science, all science should be equally excellent if we have good systems that review the science. The fact that it's open is because science funded by public funds is of public good. So we need to honor that belief. So open science is our commitment. The reform of research assessment goes hand in hand, because this paradigm cannot be achieved without a reform of the research assessment exercises, and precisely focusing more on the intrinsic quality of the outputs of research and embracing all types of outputs of research, not only articles. So embracing the intrinsic quality more than the prestige of the venue where that research is published. But this can only be achieved if we also embrace a new value system for the research conduct. So instead of being driven by numbers of publications or prestige of certain venues, we need to be driven by the quality. So research culture, in this sense, is as important as the movement towards open science and a research assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Our next speaker is Fang Xu, a professor of research evaluation at the Institute of Science and Development of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, where she's also deputy director of the Research Evaluation Center. Fang is an academic who, in her own research, specializes in research evaluation assessment, but she has promoted and provided decision-making support for the formulation of policies, in particular a reform in China in 2018. But she's also internationally very active as a steering member of DORA, the Declaration of Research Assessment, a member of International Networks on Research Management Society Research Evaluation Group, INORMS, and the panel of Elsevier International Advisor Group. Thanks, Fang.
Okay, thank you, Carol. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So this is my great honor to be here to present to you what's happening about research assessment in China. So before we come, our panel had this little discussion about to say what we're going to present to you in this afternoon, in this 1 hour section. Then we decided we're going to develop this regional perspective from 3 questions. So first, I'm going to show, to explain what or how is evaluated right now in China. So evaluations or assessment, actually this is a quite popular word among the science community in China, but this is often more mentioned or mentioned in the science and technology management tool. So this is seen as a important tool to support the management decisions in China. So it plays a great role. So if you can see the picture here, I've just listed some kinds of the evaluations on different kinds of categories. So we have evaluations on the personnel. For example, if you are a researcher in the research universities or the institute, so definitely you've got promotions, evaluations or recruitment, these kind of evaluations. But we also have this talent selection plans, that is a nationwide evaluation system. So if you want to get, let's say, a long-term support for the government from different agencies, that is kind of evaluation you are going to want to compete or to fight. And also the evaluation on projects. I believe we share the same. That is for the founding agency, the National Science Foundation of China. So we are just like a large population in the researchers among the whole, the nations. So we got lots of applications. So we got this evaluation project. This is going to be like for each, I would say, a young researcher, they're going to pick and to compete for. And also the evaluations on the institutes. Though we have like more than 3,000 universities in China, so they are all managed by the Ministry of Education. So they are doing the evaluation to see how the university is performing well. And how about your research teaching quality and the research quality. And also like us, the institute I'm from with, the Chinese Academy of Sciences. So we have like more than 100 research institutes. So we also need to do the evaluations to support the decisions made from the headquarters. And so on, so on. So now you can see we have all these evaluations. There is not one single or unit national evaluation system. The too many assessment or evaluations that I would call. That's going to become the major challenges we have right now in China, maybe particularly. And also, these evaluations actually is all just related to the management or to the decision makings. That comes to be another major problem. That is, we are going to change its value, from this quantitative or the indicative driven to the research quality, impact, and contribution. That is what we are looking for. So, what reform efforts are ongoing? So, research assessment reform, actually, it takes time. It's a long way to go. It is not like a single day you can build, not like Rome, So, we've got the joint efforts from the government and also like the scientific community. So, for the government, actually, this is not a a new topic. We've already started this reform since the 2000 years, once published an official policy document. But we had this reform in the past 10 years. We would say this is like a step-by-step to take the reform. So first, we needed to cut down the numbers of evaluations because the researchers are complaining about too many evaluations. That is already becoming a burden. So after this reform, we have a statistic to say that is like 29% less than before. So that is a remarkable one. And then we had this initiative. Okay, I have to say it in Chinese. We call it like a 破思维. That means that before we use these quantitative indicators, we're looking at the publications, patterns, these kind of things. But we see that it is not the right way to do for the research evaluation. So we need to break this kind of evaluation system. So after we break out this evaluation system, how do we evaluate? What is the right way? What is the indicator or the new method? So we just moved on to the second step. We call it like 立新标. That means that we're going to find the new criteria, okay, to change the behavior of the researchers from chasing for the numbers, for the publications, but to chase for the research excellence. So that is a long way to go. So this is what the government is doing. And so the scientific community, they are also doing their job, like the NSFC, who is responsible about the project review. They are doing this reform in the project review. We call it like the RCC, the responsible credit and contribution. That is trying to have this reform in the peer review system. And we also have this Higher Education Institute. Say they are just doing the 2-year talent assessment pilot reform. They are trying to find out what is the best way or the proper way to evaluate the researchers in their institute. And also we have CAS, which is the biggest national research institute in China. And we have research institute evaluation. We are trying to move from the major research output. Yeah, we're looking at about the research output. But now it's not enough. We're looking about the mission-oriented evaluation system. So it's never about what kind of major breaks we are going to do. We're looking for what we can serve to the public or to the nation. So this is also like a reform. That is what we're going to do. And I would say that, yes, this is what we're going to do, but that is never an end. We're still doing what we're currently to pay attention to is that we're still to explore the new and effective research assessment approaches that is in line with China's context. Okay, I know there are lots of debates around in the nationwide, like the DORA, like enormous, and also like the Global Young Academy, where we've been talking about the new ways. But we're trying to find out what is the best way, which is suited to China's context, what we need and what can serve to our needs. So maybe like AI technology can we use to reduce, to increase the efficiency, to reduce the workload, for the panels. And also we're trying to build a culture that is to pursue the excellence in scientific research through the research assessment related reform, like about the open data, open science. We're also chasing for the responsible peer review, these kind of things. And finally, we're just open to the international scientific community, and we are seeking for the knowledge exchange and collaborations to see that we can go together and to solve these global common challenges. That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Fang. We now move on to Nosisa Dube, who's a director for the Evaluation and Impact Assessment at the National Research Foundation of South Africa, where she has accumulated knowledge on research assessment for more than over 2 decades. She's also a co-lead in the Global Research Council responsible for the Research Assessment Working Group, and a co-chair of Agora, the Global Observatory of Responsible Research Assessment led by Rory, the Research on Research Institute. With these multiple hats, she too can contribute both perhaps a view from her own country and perspectives on the wider area. Thanks a lot.
Good afternoon, colleagues. When I was asked a question to address research assessment and regional perspectives, I just smiled because the region is big and the national research strategies are differentiated. So I chose to take the example of the National Research Foundation. It is institutional. Not even I could speak on the perspectives of research assessment in South Africa because we have a fragmented system, just like China. Our research assessment systems are institutionalized. But I can confidently say the National Research Foundation is a leading voice in research assessment that influences the other research assessment systems within the South African institutions and within the region. So in responding to the question, how research is evaluated in South Africa, our assessment encompasses the evaluation, next slide. Our assessment encompasses, I drive the next slide. Encompasses the evaluation of individual researchers, assessment of research projects, evaluation of research programs, and the evaluation of institutions. Through the National Research Foundation rating system, considered to be unique to South Africa, we evaluate the quality and the quality of a researcher as opposed to the quality of the research. We assess the productivity of the individual researchers, benchmarking our researchers against their global peers to measure the health of our science system. The system was developed based on a sound principle that research support in universities should be based on identifying the critical and the scarcest element in good research, a good researcher. We also assess proposals, research proposals to fund projects, monitor their progress, and evaluate performance upon completion. We also evaluate research programs to assess performance relevance for decisions on future funding interventions. We evaluate institutions to assess their performance deliverables, strategic outcomes to inform organizational priorities. Our processes include monodisciplinary, the research processes, include monodisciplinary, multi-transdisciplinary panels. Not all review panels have moved to multidisciplinarity. For example, the evaluation of individual researchers focuses on the productivity of that researcher in mastering a monodisciplinary niche, but there is conversations that are taking place considering the shift of how to measure this research excellence and outputs, considering multidisciplinarities. And so the manner in which the process, the peer review process is run depends on the unit of analysis. And then the principles and approaches that we subscribe to are the Global Research, Responsible Research Assessment dimensions, very similar to the principles of the Kuwara and the principles of the DORA that promote the balance between the use of qualitative metrics and balanced with quantitative metrics. And then the criteria, what we value in our research is research relevance, impact, implementation of the research methods, the competencies and collaboration, and transdisciplinary research. We prioritize this because we are fostering and encouraging the performance of research that will impact on society. Now, the third question that came through was, what is the evidence of research assessment reform? Throughout this, the conference, we've been talking about co-creation, moving to research that influences society, and I kept on hearing the phrase, we need to, as though we are not doing this. I have experienced this co-creation. As a member of the GRC-RRA working group, we piloted a multilateral call last year a code that was shared between 11 funders between the Global North and the Global South. It was an interesting experience with transdisciplinary submissions, about 86 of them. There were a lot of lessons that were learned there. And there were good lessons, and then there were challenging lessons. All that we learned is there's great challenges in the co-creation of the running of calls, the decision-making, the selection of reviewers, and all that goes with the process. So I just want to say the policies that we have, the decadal plan in the region, the Namibian science technology strategy, as well as the Seychelles STI strategy, all speak to co-creation, cooperation, and the working together with multi-sectoral stakeholders. So we are experiencing this. Let me get my notes. My computer is dead. So we also, let's see. Now, emphasis is also placed on research that advances societal impact, already mentioned, and the NRF mandate also provides a broad national intent for research that benefits society. The frameworks, our frameworks outline the implementation and adoption of impact advancement and science engagement. We also, at the NRF, have developed a framework for impact advancement and engaged research. Another form of research assessment reform, we are using some AI to track the demographics of funded researchers to honor our transformation agenda and to harness equity, diversity, and inclusion. We also track, by the way, the number of these rated researchers to assess the strength of our science system. We do also raise awareness. If you see that little photo in the corner down at the bottom of the slide, is myself visiting Namibia and CRST to speak about responsible research assessment in the region. So we're also running a survey in partnership with Research on Research Institute and the GRC-RRA working group to assess the status of the research assessment systems in different countries. And this survey is run across the 5 regions that are covered by the GRC. And that's all for me.
Thanks a lot, Nosisa. Before opening the floor to a general discussion, I need to ask you to please bear with us because we have a recorded video testimony. Unfortunately, Dr. Luciana Balboa could not be here. Luciana is a steering member, a member of the steering board of COARA, as well as a member of the GYA and the Young Academy of Argentina. She could not be here for personal reasons, but fortunately she was able to at least send us a video contribution. I don't know if it's possible to project it. Yes.
Hi everybody, I am Luciana Balboa and I would like to share with you the perspectives on research assessments from Latin America. So in Latin America, the perception of science is shaped by the region's history and the way science is mostly funded. Here, science is viewed as a global public good, and this perception has linked to a long-standing tradition of open access, community-driven, non-profit journals. So in these models, knowledge flows from academic and scientific institutions rather than large publishers. And this publication approach is called Diamond Route, and it promotes equity by eliminating article processing fees and encourages biodiversity, supporting multilingualism and the visibilization of local impact issues. However, there are 2 important limitations to note. First, the adoption of these publication models varies across different disciplines. For instance, in biomedicine, my field, still gold open access journals dominates the circulation of knowledge in the region. And second, the strengths and traditions of regional publishing are not yet fully acknowledged in research evaluation systems. As a result, there is a disconnect between how science is envisioned in the region and how research is currently assessed. In response to these tensions in research evaluation, Claxo4Lex launched a significant declaration in June 2022. This declaration emphasized the importance of diverse research outputs, the value of regional journals, and the recognition of interdisciplinarity, local languages, and indigenous knowledges. And this declaration has catalyzed reform efforts across the continent, which I would like to summarize, and I will just mention a few of them. So, for instance, a Colombian initiative funded by DORA has developed a rubric to assist institutions in crafting their own research evaluation frameworks. And they were capable at identifying significant challenges, and one of them was the lack of interoperability among existing information systems. And to address that issue, the Ministry of Science and Technology introduced the ImpactU platform, an institutional research information system launched this year. This system aims to enhance data accuracy and coverage for more robust evaluations, ensuring transparency and open access to the information used for evaluations. Also in Argentina, notable reforms include those from CONICET, which oversees researchers' evaluations. And they have made strides by recognizing regional journals, particularly in the social and human sciences. They have committed to DORA principles in 2022 and incorporated qualitative assessment in candidates' promotions. Additionally, Agencia, which is Argentina's primary research funding agency, has made progress by providing reviewers compensation, promoting open access in compliance with national law, and integrating equity and inclusivity into project assessments. However, I had to mention that this agency has not carried out evaluation this year due to budget constraints, and this is also part of Latin American, and in this case, Argentina's reality. In Central America, 25 public universities from 9 countries, members of the Central American Higher University Council, are committed to reforming institutional research evaluation systems. And lastly, I also would like to highlight a new FORLEC Claxo initiative, a course for reviewers that was launched this year. So this ongoing course aims to enhance evaluators' understanding of current practices and improvement areas. So looking ahead to 2025, there are plans to formalize this initiative into a Claxo Advanced Diploma in Scientific and Academic Evaluation, fostering a critical reflection on scientific and academic policies in Latin America context. And to conclude, I would like to revisit the initial concept and emphasize that the foremost priority for our region is to connect the tradition of science as a common good with our evaluative practices. However, this shift extends beyond merely adjusting indicators. It necessitates a profound transformation of the values and principles underlying our evaluation systems. It is crucial to prioritize concepts such as social impact, local relevance, and democratic access to knowledge. So these are key axes for developing an evaluation model that really resonates with the unique needs and context of Latin America. And this transformation invites us to critically examine 3 fundamental dimensions. Why are we assessing? What exactly are we evaluating? And how are we conducting the assessment? In addressing these questions, we can forge a more equitable and relevant framework for scientific evaluation in our region. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, on the one hand, I would like to know if there are already questions or comments. Please raise your hand. I will leave you the words. I will, however, take the luxury of being the moderator to start myself with one question for anyone who would like to answer. It will be a very easy question, I promise. We started from Yancy, who highlighted that if you pick a random researcher in the world, if you want to know how she will be evaluated, it's much more important. Rather than knowing the discipline, the track, the rank, whatever, you need to know where they're based, because this is really the ultimate thing. On the other hand, and so we also heard from Lydia, who concluded saying, please, non-European institutions join COARA, let us talk about it, if I'm not simplifying too much. On the other hand, we heard from Fang and Nosisa that even within their countries, there is a lot of internal variety. So the simple question is, what is the optimal level of convergence? I guess we don't want to say that one size fits all, but also, my personal opinion, tell me what you think. Extreme diversity could probably hurt the mobility of researchers, for example. What is the right balance?
Tricky question to start, thank you. No, what I will say is that indeed, not one size fits all, of course. And I mean, we are far from, let's say, having a clear alternative in the horizon. What we have done, at least that's what we pursued from COARA, is to initiate a dialogue. And what we see is that there is real thirst to contribute to this dialogue. In this case of COARA, there are two main mechanisms for dialogue. One is the working groups. As I said in my presentation, they are thematic. They talk about either peer review, or they talk about interdisciplinarity, they talk about languages, etc. There are 15 now, if I remember correctly. And members can join anytime. So that is one level of dialogue. And now there is the job of the steering board is to try and bring all these activities together. But the other level of dialogue, at least in Europe, is what we've called national chapters. That, in fact, was an idea that was not at the beginning when we started the COARA. It's just emerged because the community say, yes, but we have different legal frameworks depending on the country. Therefore, we believe it's important also to foster the dialogue at national level, so we can take account of our system and share it with the others. So this year in February, for example, the colleagues in Portugal offered an opportunity to bring together all the national chapters that had been constituted at that time. So they present excellent examples of dialogue at national level where they put in contact organizations that traditionally would not talk to each other. So I think that, at least for the time being, these two levels of expertise through the working groups, multinational and national, is very good to identify what in a country is a law and therefore perhaps more difficult to change than other issues who may depend more on the institutional level.
Any of the speakers would like to add something?
It's on. There's nothing late on this one. Okay. I agree with the international networks. I actually like the idea. The greatest growth I've experienced over the period of 2 years is when I joined the GRC RRA working group, and with James Morris from Science Europe, we were invited to comment on the COARA, which got us to read that framework and understand what it was all about. And we as a group have developed the 11 dimensions of responsible research assessment, published, I think, last year in May. And then the dimensions were launched in the Netherlands. So the international networks do facilitate growth and facilitate peer learning. But yes, what I want to comment on regarding the convergence within the region, I think funders research assessment frameworks have a significant impact on the research and the researchers they fund. Some of the research assessment frameworks overlook what needs to be considered. So, and therefore there's misalignment with these frameworks that can hinder the effectiveness of research and initiatives in the region. So I believe that we should have a systematic review of frameworks existing within that region, identify the gaps that exist and what are the limitations and what needs to be corrected, but this should be done in a systematic fashion with rigor and good methodology. So within the African region and also within South Africa itself as a nation, that systematic review of the existing frameworks should be done, and we should be deliberate about developing our own research assessment national framework. Thank you.
Please. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this group of interventions, which was very interesting for us. I have 3 questions. Well, I come from Mexico, from the Latin American region. And the first question is, in some of the presentations, one could infer the purpose of the different evaluation processes, either individual or institutional or national. But I don't see very clearly really what the purpose of these evaluations is, which I think is fundamental. If you don't have a purpose, is it for diagnostic? Is it to identify gaps? Is it to correct situations? Is it for planning? So if the speakers could say something about that. The second is, well, in Latin America, it is very clear this process has been led by CLACSO, by the Council of Latin American Council of Social Sciences Centers, and they are doing a great work in the social sciences. But as we have often discussed with the leaders of CLACSO, it is very difficult for this whole FOLEC movement to really, let's say, penetrate into the physical and mathematical sciences, the harder sciences. My colleagues, I am a physicist, they don't even know about that, and they ignore it, and they still think in terms of quantitative measures, no? Indicators and so on, and they are driven by it. So there is a disconnect between the social sciences and the harder disciplines. I would like to know whether that is true in other regions, and what can be done about it. And the third question is, you have said, and that there is too much assessment. It takes a lot of time. We researchers are too much assessed. There is a feeling of that, no? So what are you doing to reduce the frequency of assessment, and what could be the role of self-assessment? Not to wait until others assess us, but also try to be more responsible ourselves and try to assess ourselves so that there are not so many institutional and national assessment tasks that take a lot of time. Thank you for the 3 questions.
Yes, thank you. I've seen a lot of hands, so if possible, could we please ask shorter questions and maybe also provide shorter answers? Sorry about this.
Yes, mine is very short, and it's actually related with her first question. She was saying, what is the aim of all this evaluation? And I would like to go a bit beyond that. You have to know, when you decide, when all the policy makers here, when you decide what you want to assess, you have to bear in mind that wherever you are assessing is going to impact how we are going to research. And that is a very important thing. I didn't present myself. I'm Alba Gomez. I'm from the Spanish researchers in Southern Africa. I have been living in South Africa for 11 years, and there is one policy that they make that it would sound very good, and that is that every article that someone is publishing, the government is paying something to that entity, to that university. But what happened with that is that quantity wins against quality. So I have been punished for taking 3 years to do one research and one publication in a high-impact journal, while I should have maybe do a worst study so that I can do it fast, and in place of doing 100 samples every month for 1 year, I will do one sampling of three samples and publish in a month. So I can publish every month. That's it, sorry.
Thank you. Maybe one last question, and then we provide a round of answers, and then we collect more questions.
Thank you for a very interesting session, very interesting presentations. I have a question that will be different to all of the speakers, but one particular for Lydia Boré-Demian about the unified drivers, because you've highlighted the need for the unified drivers, while if we listen carefully to the other presenters, we can clearly see that the drivers are different. They are not unified in the different parts of the world. So a question to you is, how do you find this being contradictory? And to the others, do you agree on the unified drivers, or do you see it differently? Thank you.
So I would start with answers. I know there are other questions. Please remind to be short. Maybe we could start from the back, because you already answered once.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to answer, okay. So there are lots of topics to mention, and so first is about the purposes. Yeah, yes, I think that is definitely to be considered, especially like what I mentioned in China's context. Because you see, we use this research assessment, actually it's already like deeply involved in the research management to make the decisions. So once we take the research evaluation, in such high or important role, you definitely need to think about what's the purpose, or whether it is necessary or need to start the research assessment. As you may know, it's just like time consuming, and people just feel tired, and sometimes it may not cause what you expected from the evaluations. So we do have to think about it. But nonetheless, I think whether it is to diagnose the problem, or we are doing to the foresight, or we are doing for the promotion purpose, I have to say that evaluation is becoming their favorite tool, for the management. So, and also you mentioned about the social sciences. Yeah, the differences. Yeah, I understand. Actually, we had this talk about the different evaluation methods should be separated or different between the social sciences and the natural sciences, because they have a different research style, though they have the different forms of research. I mean, the output or the impact or the contribution to the research area or to the public. Yes. So, like in China, we have developed this philosophy in the evaluation. That is to say, we need to target each researcher to see whether you are a social scientist or whether you are a natural scientist. So we have different categories. Then we are going to develop the different indicators or the methods for different kinds of the researchers. That is something we are trying to do for the pilot, in the talent assessment. And you also mentioned about the frequencies, the too many research assessment. We are either being assessed or we are evaluating people. No one likes to be evaluated. Even I'm going to get the grant or everything, because all the time is being consumed. So what we are doing that in China, we also have this frequency program. Like the NSFC grant. This year we have like more than 40,000 applications. You can imagine all the human man-hours it may take. So we're thinking to use some technology, like the AI technology, to reduce the workload. But we still also need to pay attention to see what AI can do or what it should not be do, to serve to the research, increase the efficiency. Yeah, I think I may just leave to the rest. Okay? Yeah.
So I just want to confirm that, well, what we found in our study, in our sample, we found that there were actually no significant differences between the way how researchers are assessed in different disciplines, which is, in my opinion, quite alarming. because I feel that each discipline should have its own outputs, its own incentives, and its own activities. So that is what the study told us, what's the data told us. And I feel that as a researcher, I agree with the comment. I feel that sometimes research assessment actually has negative motivators, It motivates actually the lack of integrity in research. And I feel it as a researcher all the time. And I would like that policymakers, and that's why we're all here, take research integrity at the core of any decision for assessment. Because I think that science deserves it, society deserves it, and research integrity should be the principle by which we are assessed, the rigor and integrity of our work, and that's it, period. Thank you.
I was wondering if the questions have not been answered already, but let me speak to the context of South Africa. I mentioned a unique system for measuring the quality of a researcher. So I'll just take on and respond to the NRF rating system. The purpose of assessment there, I mentioned that it is to benchmark the South African researchers against their global peers. So we do this to assess the health of our science system. We use global peers, peer reviewers. 60% of those that assess the researchers and their productivity is international researchers. So it is done to encourage productivity of established researchers, that they should continue producing the outputs that are expected, whatever type. And then the emerging researchers to be encouraged to assess their career progression. So that's the evaluation. But when it comes to the evaluation of research programs, because we have a transformation agenda, we need to constantly assess the relevance of the research program that is being run and to make decisions on future research interventions, what research to fund, how to fund, what approaches should be taken considering the changing research space and these global transformations that we're experiencing.
Shortly, because I basically agree with what my colleague said, but perhaps addressing this question on the drivers and the gaps. Yeah, I think that the drivers can be multiple, because that's precisely what we are promoting, that careers are not just one single path. That because today's research gives us many inputs different from the past, careers can also diversify. Therefore, it's very difficult to unify. And that's not wrong nor right. That's just adapting the assessment criteria to the diversity of careers that an institution would like to hold. I know, for example, an example in USA where the department in full went to see the principal of the university and told him how they wanted to be assessed. And, and they agreed, and it's a famous university, I won't name it, but they agreed and they are assessed, and they completely changed the way they were assessed. It was an agreement with the department. But this is the way they propose to build that department, that expertise. Well, who are anybody else to say that they are wrong? That's just to put an anecdotal example. And then the gap. Yeah, there is a gap. There are many gaps. And the gap is not only between social sciences and humanities and hard sciences. There are many, many gaps. But again, that's not right nor wrong. What is important when you analyze an output of a research activity is it valuable for the field? Is it rigorous? Is the analysis well made? Is it novel? Is it a new focus? The peer reviewers do that. So why not to put that at the center rather than going through the proxy of a number attributed to the prestige of a venue?
So while collecting other questions, I think there's still a mic going around. Let me also briefly comment on this round by a little bit of publicity, in the sense that I myself have represented the Global Young Academy in a scoping group with the Inter-Academy Partnership and the International Science Council. We have produced 2 reports that are freely available online on the website of the 3 organizations. Basically, we have consulted with many national senior and young academies around the world, and a main gap that emerged, it seems to me, is a lack of coordination. There are many academies that would like to push for a change in the way research is assessed, but nobody really would like to be the only one or the one to move in a 2 different directions from the others. So coordination is another of the big gaps, in my view. Please, there was a question here. Yeah.
Yeah, short question. You mentioned peer review, and peer review is tightly connected to open access and research assessment. But the current system doesn't work that well. I'm speaking as a researcher. Can you just comment on what efforts are being made to change and improve the peer review process?
Any other last very quick question? No, okay. So anybody would like to comment on peer review? On peer review, this last question? How do you think peer review could be improved?
So,
Jens,
I think
please.
that sometimes, after all this knowledge, we in the Global Young Academy also are undergoing improvements for our peer review. And we have found so far that if we find the mechanisms to amplify the pool of peer reviewers, and we give them the tools to relate to the reality of the researcher in a way that the researcher also can get peer review from different perspectives. So not only one peer review, but other. And also sometimes I have found in this peer review process that if we prepare researchers to be reviewed by not only specialists from our field, but by researchers from other fields, and we learn to put our work in the context of the society or as a general audience, some things can also be improved in the process. This is a small exercise that we have done in the GYA, and has rendered a lot of improvements in our review. But this is just one example.
So there are core principles that are mentioned in the frameworks. For instance, the ESF peer review guide that was published in 2011 speaks to the 5 core principles of a quality peer review. And one of them is the integrity of the peer review process, defined as we say what we do, and we do what we say we do. So the challenge is often found in the implementation. We've got good documents, but the training of those that run the peer review process is also very important. And the other thing that we're doing, and I know that the QUARA or Science Europe framework talks about the continuous review of the assessment criteria done together with the researchers. So at the NRF, we actually follow this. For every cycle, every year, we take our peer review documentation, subject it to the researchers for improvement. They are the ones that informed how they want to be reviewed. So we actually practice this.
Fang, please.
Yes. Since we are talking about the research evaluation reform, so that is from the quantitative to the qualitative. So that means that peer review is going to, to play a more and more important role in all kinds of research assessment. So I think that is one thing, is to how we improve the quality of the peer review, or how do we develop the new method about the peer review system. So I can just share some experience or something we do maybe back in China, because we have so many things to assessment. That means our peers has already been like well trained, to do the peer review things. So for the NSFC, which is the largest funding agency in basic research, so they have already developed this whole system to how to train or how to, to guide a peer, to from maybe you are just a new starter, then to be a qualified reviewers. I think this is something we can do. So this is one thing to before you do the evaluation. And also, if for a peer, if you have already done your reviews, so there is something we can do the recording thing. We can record, how fast do you respond to the review request, and also about the review opinions. I know there are already some statistical analysis about your review behavior. And this is also kind of thing for us to know more about the peer review behavior, and then we can just to see what we can do to improve this system. Yeah, that's
just one
please.
word or one sentence is that.
Please.
Start training peer reviews in early career researchers.
Okay.
Because if we are good reviewers since then we become better at reviewing later on. Thank you.
So thanks a lot. We started from the idea of balance. It seems like another balance to be reached is between what researchers would like and what research managers would like. We will not solve it today. Thanks a lot. This is clearly a discussion to be had at a global level. Thanks a lot, everyone.